Welcome back to Scandinavian Cookbook. I'm Sylvia, and today I'm making Sylvia cake. That's right, Sweden named a cake after me. Well, they either named it after me or Queen Silvia of Sweden. Definitely one of us. This is one of my favorite Swedish cakes, not just because of its beautiful name, but also it is so delicious. It's a light vanilla sponge cake with an egg cream frosting topped with shredded coconut. This is the sort of cake that everyone loves. At least I've never served it to anyone who didn't love it. I guess the only thing someone might not like is the shredded coconut, but if you don't like coconut, you can add sprinkles instead. Sylvia is so agreeable like that. I am linking the recipe in the description box below, and while you're there, click subscribe for more Scandinavian recipes. This recipe does use a ton of eggs, well, especially because I'm doubling the recipe today because it's my friend Lisa's birthday this weekend, so I'm making her this cake for her birthday party. Cake is a pretty easy cake to make. There are just two things you have to keep in mind when you're making this cake, and the first one is that you really need to beat the eggs and sugar for a long time until they're really pale and fluffy. So don't skimp on time, and you do want to use an electric mixer for this. It would take a long time to beat the egg and sugar by hand. I mean, you could, but it'll be easier with an electric mixer. And the other thing you have to remember is not to over stir the batter. So once you add the dry ingredients, you want to stir as little as possible. You don't want to overwork the batter because then you will lose the air in the batter and you'll get a denser cake, and this cake is meant to be light and fluffy. So one way I do this is I'm always sure to run the dry ingredients through a sift or a strainer like this, just so that it's very fine, there won't be any lumps, and you don't have to stir very much. Done that, you can stir very gently. You're kind of folding in the dry ingredients here. And once you have a nice smooth batter, finally you're going to add the water. So this cake batter is quite similar to Danish dream cake, but with Danish dream cake we add melted butter, and with Sylvia cake you add water at the end. So it is less of a rich cake and more of a light cake, which I really love. And again, you're going to try to stir as little as possible here. Just kind of fold in the water. And now the batter is smooth, so I'm going to pour it into my cake pan. And remember, I have doubled the recipe here. If you're doing the regular recipe, then you'll be baking it in a brownie pan. Bake this for about 30 to 40 minutes until the top is nice and golden brown. And once the cake has cooled a bit, you can pour the glaze over the cake, and you can do this directly in the pan if you have room and if your baking paper is still covering the pan. Or you can remove the cake from the pan and just spread the glaze over the top. Ideally you want to do it in the pan, but when I do this in a brownie pan, sometimes I run out of room. And just pour this evenly across the top. finally, you're gonna sprinkle the top with coconut. However, I like to wait until it's cooled a little bit more so that the coconut doesn't just sink to the bottom of the glaze, but it stays on the top of the glaze. So I'm gonna give it a few minutes before adding the coconut. So now the top has set a bit, I'm gonna add the shredded coconut. And if you don't like shredded coconut, you can use sprinkles instead. I've seen some people do that. I love coconut, so I always use the coconut.